Hi, everyone, and welcome to LENSEC Live. What's your perspective? And I'm excited about our topic today. And again, remember to go to lensec.com/live to check out all the live events. And I'm excited to welcome the program. First, my co-host, Keith Harris. Keith, how are you? And how are things? We're just going quickly through January already, aren't we?
I'm doing great on my end. Everything's going well. Had a beautiful weekend. Took an extra day yesterday to take some time off with the family, and back hard at work here today, trying to get things rolling and get this year rolling.
Exactly. Getting that year rolling is an exciting thing. And our guest today is Bryce Capodieci. And Bryce Capodieci is the sales engineer for LENSEC. How are you, Bryce?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. I'm
excited about being here with Bryce because, again, Bryce is going to teach us what the role is of the sales engineer at LENSEC. So we're going to learn about that today. And Keith, I think you're excited too, to see all the different ins and outs of what happens with the sales engineer when it comes to prospective EMS.
Bryce is a smart guy. I learn a lot from him.
I think he has more mirrors. I think he has more roles than just sales engineer. But kind of define what the role of a sales engineer is, Bryce, and then we'll kind of go back and forth.
So, I'll say within LENSEC, we do have to wear many hats, and as the role is defined for a sales engineer, is obviously it's technical support, technical assistance, and having that technical background to support the software. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but it's also involving, competitor analysis, right? We have to keep up with what our competitors are doing, provide documentation on that, so our regional sales manager would have that information. There's a lot of documentation involved. Sometimes our product and our software can be very technical, and we want to be able to provide clear documentation for our end users or even our partners to be able to install the software properly. We release anywhere from 6 to 8 different revisions per year, and sometimes there are new features that are added. So we need to properly document those new features so that everyone can be on the same page and install these features correctly so that everyone gets the best experience when using Perspective.
So, Bryce, we keep telling people how easy PVMS is. Why so much technical documentation? How does it help?
So it goes into detail step by step. There are a lot of features within Perspective that, with just an intuitive mind, you can figure out. But when you get into the many different features we have over 700 different features, and they may not always be quite apparent to you on first glance when you're looking through Perspective. And some of them are buried a little deeper, but with the documentation, you can actually go through and configure a lot of these by yourself, especially if you're new to Perspective. If you're a seasoned installer, the new features that come out, and especially when you're working with other platforms, it's not that hard for you to figure out. But for a brand new user, it's really important to have that documentation to walk you through the steps. Especially if you haven't gone through our training. But if you have, obviously you forget things, and it's always nice to refer back to that reference.
So you don't have to be a rocket scientist.
You do not. That's correct.
Good.
But you understand the ins and outs. So then when one question comes up, then the next question comes up, and then the next question comes up. And the job of the sales engineer is to really know what the back end of that product is like. Why does it react the way it reacts? And that's part of that technical training that you're part of with Sonia sometimes as well. But So kind of going into the process, the sales engineer's job, first of all, is how to work with the integrator and the end user, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm devising a checklist for all of our sales engineers and even future new hires so that we can have a systematic checklist of all the different phases of an opportunity, I will say. You go from opportunity, prospective clients, to an opportunity, to a deployment, and then the life of that deployment, whether it be a service contract or a remote service monitoring contract, stuff like that. So it's important that we follow checklists so we make sure that we have everything set up in the right order and that nothing slips through the cracks. Because we are known for having great support, and that is what I want to make sure that we have going forward in the future. It's easy to lose sight of those little things. It's easy to overlook a few things. I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen. So with this documentation, what does a sales engineer do? What is our function here at LENSEC? I've broken down into a couple different phases. Again, there's the opportunity, which involves the prospecting of new customers, new partners. What is our role in that area? So typically we need to be available for technical demos or to be available to the RSMs or regional sales managers to answer technical questions. And we have to be available to do this quickly, because you have to keep in mind, if we're approaching a partner or even an end user, we're not the only one looking to get that business. So it's important to provide that information as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible. So let's say we move on, we provide that technical support or the demos, we get the partner on, in line, on board with us. So what's the next step? Now they have quotes. So it's up to us to help our regional sales manager in providing an accurate technical quote. We do offer hardware in the line of servers. Mostly we are a software manufacturer, but we do offer servers as a kind of a turnkey solution. So we have to design a server that's appropriate for that application. What we need to know is the camera count and the different specifications and parameters of those cameras so that we can accurately design a server that meets that customer's needs. If they need video for 30 days, we need to know, well, how many cameras, what's the resolution, the frame rate, and so on. So we can accurately design the servers to meet those needs. And then in some cases, the regional sales managers will design these servers themselves. So it's up to us to make sure that the technical side of that is correct. We'll do a quick one-over review. And even in some cases, when we have a partner that's quoting maybe a displacement, they already have the system in place. We need to go in there, look at what they have, what's their bandwidth and what's their current server situation, how many cameras. And a lot of times we can design a server that was better than what they currently have. So overall, the customer is extremely excited because now they have a system that performs better. All right. So that's the quoting, that's the opportunity stage. Now, once the quote goes through, our next step is to, make sure that, especially with new partners, is to make sure that the server is properly configured, and we help them install the software in the correct way. And then we get, in the beginning, at least all the major components, get the cameras streaming, get them archiving snapshots and extractions, and then make sure that the server is set up properly. You have to have some technical knowledge of network, as an example of Active Directory, or configuring your servers to communicate to the internet. It's not just our servers can work internally on a local LAN, but in many cases now with mobile devices, everyone wants to connect externally. So we have to know how to set up the routers, port forwarding. We have to configure the server so that we have an external IP address. That's getting really technical here, but just to keep in mind that there are a lot of professional services that we have to offer to our partners and even end users to get them set up with all the features that they really need to get the best out of perspective. Now, next phase, once we get all that done, get the server set up, and we work with the partner for deployment. So now the server goes out to the end user. We need to do the once over kind of review, make sure the technician did install everything properly. And if we sign off on it, I call that commissioning. Once we've completed commissioning, then it's up to the sales engineer to reach out, maybe through the partner or to the end user directly, to set up end user training. We don't want to just say, here it is, have fun with it. We want to make sure that our users are well trained with our software. We offer that support going forward. So it's not just even one meeting. Really can't talk about everything in 1 hour. We try to set it to 1 hour. Everyone's busy. So we always say, come back to us. If you have questions, we show them where you can find videos and other resources to help them through any of their issues. But in the end, we're always there for them, whether it's myself or other sales engineers or our support team.
So you do pre-sales, you help make sure the quote's right, you optimize equipment, you help make sure it gets deployed, and you commission the job after it's sold. And then you also help support the partner going forward. So is there any part of the sales process that you're not involved in?
No, actually involved in every aspect, from prospecting customers to the end of life, which is basically the maintenance contracts that we offer,
So you're,
and that's just the life cycle of that process. We're also technically like tier 2, tech support as well. We have our support team members that are the first line of assistance, and then if you encounter a problem that's a little too technical for them, they will come to us, and then if it's beyond our capabilities as well, then we revert to our advanced support team as well. But it's a group effort. But not only just the life cycle of that deployment, but also the ongoing technical assistance and documentation, as I mentioned earlier.
So when you talk about that ongoing technical assistance, once the product's sold, you're helping out with that, but also the software renewal. or the update of the software, or adding more cameras. So kind of go into that nuanced processes. Once we have an end user on board, they're always going to possibly add licenses or upgrade, right?
Yeah, and it's true. And it goes beyond that. Sometimes we have very savvy users that may say, hey, it'd be nice if you guys can do this. Do you do it? A lot of times we say, yes, actually we do. We just haven't configured or you're not aware of it. But maybe we don't. And, we are, as sales engineers, we are the voice of the customer. So it's up to us to go out to our end users or even partners when it comes down to installation. What can we do to make their job easier, make their time more cost effective? We are constantly talking to our partners and end users to figure out what can we do better. And we provide that feedback to our developers and upper management as well. So it is an ongoing process. It's an ongoing relationship development and maintain those relationships.
I think one of the cool things that our sales engineers get to do is help to design, potentially complex solutions for our partners and their end users. Do you have any good stories about some things that you've worked on with partners and end users?
Yeah, so I guess what you're talking about or referring to are the workflows, correct?
Well, workflows is one item, but I mean, there could be many of them that you guys get to work on. Alman previously worked on helping to prepare a solar solution that our partners have access to, and I'm sure you've worked on many things like that, but I haven't heard many stories. I'd like to hear a few.
Yeah, so I have a couple of stories, not as far as assembling, like the fleet modules or the solar, but just working with what Perspective has to offer. I've had a daycare had asked if they can set up certain times of the day where the parents can sign into Perspective and view their children while in the while in daycare. But obviously, they want to limit it to what cameras they have access to, and at a certain point in the day, they want that access to be revoked. So, after say 3 o'clock when school is over or preschool is over, the parents no longer have access to those cameras. So that was fun setting up schedules like that. We have situations where they want continuous recording during the day, and then when there's less activity in the evenings, there's no reason to record continuously. So you set up these different schedules. I have had one schedule where it is going back and forth one day. So we've had every day has 2 or 3 different schedules, and they overlap in some cases. Wow. How do you configure those so you're not missing video when you're supposed to be recording and shutting it off when you don't need it unless there's motion? So it gets to be challenging, but we manage it. I have another situation where, and this is involving the workflow. So I have a customer who shows up to work fairly early, and it's a public building. She's there alone by herself, and she wants to feel the security of knowing who's entering the building until 8 a.m. when a lot more people show up for work. So we set up workflows to notify her through email and an audible alert on her machine. So when someone enters the building, doesn't matter what door, she gets an email with a snapshot of that camera of that person walking through the door. So she can say, oh, okay, that's Tom. That's not a problem. But if someone walks through that door and she doesn't know who it is, she could be made aware and be prepared for that situation. So that's an example of how great workflows work. They're just the workhorse and the automation of Perspective. We use them for everything. There's so many different ways you can configure workflows. I'm putting together a lot of documentation for this because I've working with many customers and even partners. They don't understand how these work or even how to utilize them. They're very underutilized right now. So I'm making an effort. I'm taking it upon myself to go out to our partners and our end users and show them how to do this and how to set these up. And they're very easy. It's intimidating when you don't know it. When you actually sit down and set up a workflow, it really isn't that hard. And so I'm making it my own personal goal to educate everyone who uses Perspective to use workflows.
Right. And that's a great thing. And then that could be a great tutorial that you can put on video and use for the online training academy and also the trainings that we do online as well. And that's another rule of sales engineer. We'll get to that in a second. Now let's go. We talk about, software renewals, different things like that. Let's talk about how this doesn't end from here. This is a cyclical process that goes around and around with the integrator all the time when there's a new customer, and then go around again back to the integrator, back through the end user and back around on the help and all that process. But what about other things that the sales engineer does? We're not just talking about working with the end user. We're not just talking about working with the integrator, but other things with the product.
Other things with the product, so we have different types of integrations. And I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you're coming up with integrations, but also changes of the how we go from 4.3 to 4.4 and all that stuff. Yeah.
okay. So what you're talking about, if they maintain their service contract, they're entitled to every product release that we have. Obviously, not everyone wants to upgrade their system every single time, every 3 or 4 weeks that we release new software. What we try to do as sales engineers is pick out a few of the main features that come out in each release and present it to our partner and say, hey, maybe we should talk to our end user there and let them know that, in this release, and now we have server side motion detection, which we never had before. This came out in PBMS 4.31. A lot of cameras out there are analog or just off-brand cameras that say they're ONVIF compliant, but they're not truly ONVIF compliant. So what this particular feature does is allow us to record on motion on the server side, which some of these cameras don't support. We always like to push motion detection when using H.264 on the edge device. Just frees up the CPU of the server to handle other things. So that's an idea. So as a sales engineer, we keep an eye on what features we have when we release the new versions. We communicate with our partners and schedule upgrades. We also, before all that even starts, when we're going back to the prospective stage, when the sales manager is out prospecting new partners, we work with those partners to get them set up with Perspective on their in-house demo. We give them a trial license, so how many cameras they need, 4, 8, doesn't matter. And then maybe some analytic license if they want to test, or access control licenses as well. So basically, we get them installed, show them how easy it is to install software, provide them documentation so they can do it on their own, and then give them a quick, 30,000 foot demonstration of how to use software. So that seems to be well received. Everyone that I've worked with lately, they just are amazed at how easy Perspective is to install and how easy it is to configure. And they just love the sleekness of our software. So, and then with that, then there's also the assistance with our partners for the integration. We have access control. We always have new partners that are bringing in different types of access control or different types of integration. So then it's our job to, as a sales engineer, to work with our development team. We submit these feature requests and then try to do some background research to help them along, provide links or any kind of technical data that might make their job easier in trying to figure out how we integrate with this particular company and their device. So again, it's taking that feedback from our customers or partners.
So you've been with LENSEC for about 1.5 years now, and tell us about where you were before. What did you do before you came on board at LENSEC?
So I started out my career as an electrical engineer. I graduated from West Virginia University, which I currently reside in Morgantown, which is the home of West Virginia University. So for the first 12 years of my professional career, I worked as an electrical engineer. The last 8 years, I worked for West Virginia University in the IT department. And this wasn't anything that I ever had experience with other than having a technical background. They hired me in. They figured, you got an impressive resume. We figured you can do this. And I picked it up fairly quickly. Obviously I had to study, had to learn all this stuff. I didn't know what an IT operations manager did. Didn't even know what that was. Within a short period of time, I was a valuable team member and was always having that thirst for knowledge and to improve myself. So I studied more and more and more. And the same thing happened when I got hired with LENSEC. My question was, what was in my resume that thought you guys can do, thought I could take on this position and do it well? And the fact that I was electrical engineer and IT, and I worked for the enterprise type of end user at the university. So those 3 points made me attractive in that aspect. So,
and apparently a lifelong learner. You've picked up and run with the new role well.
Thank you. Well, it takes hard work. You gotta put yourself in the shoes. Like, this is not a paycheck. This is not a 9-to-5 job. If you take it as you own the company, you have ownership in the company, it is your family, then you don't mind putting in the long hours and possibly weekends to make sure you get the job done. And that's just the attitude I have with this company. LENSEC is fantastic. Working with great professionals like yourselves and other members just gives you that motivation to keep working harder and harder, because you want to make sure that we all rise together. And I don't want to be the one that brings anybody down.
Okay, so let's talk hobbies. Keith threw those out. Bryce was on the show before with Sonia together. We had Sonia by herself. We forgot to ask her hobbies and stuff. Well, tell us some of your hobbies.
So I actually have done this a while, but I'm a Cicerone and a certified BJCP beer judge. So for the longest time, I would say 20 years. Before I took this job, I was actually prospecting for investors to open a brewery here in Morgantown called Rustic Brew. And once I got on board with LENSEC, I decided, no, it's not my future anymore. And I'm kind of, the brewing, home brewing has been kind of dying down a little bit, but especially with a newborn baby, she's now 21 months old and a new wife. So my focus has changed a little bit, but as far as right now it's cold outside, so I'm dying and I'm stuck in my office all the time. But when it's nice and warm, I do a lot of hiking and camping. I'm talking about not glamour camping or glamping. I like to put on a backpack, hike into the mountains for a couple miles, and whatever I take with me is all I got to survive for the next 2 or 3 days. That's my idea of camping, not driving up to a campsite, parking right next to the campfire. That's not as fun for me. But anything outdoors, kayaking, boating, swimming, scuba diving. I'm extremist. I've done skydiving, and my latest hobby right now is actually getting into woodworking. I'm setting up my basement now with all the right tools and machines, and going to start redoing
Bryce
the
just
kitchen.
never stops with different things, Keith. He just
I know. He needs to come around, hang out with me sometime. We're the best brews and see who's got the better woodworking shop.
And I've not been interviewed yet, Keith. I'm kind of hurt by that. You've not interviewed me yet.
It needs to come around. We'll make it happen.
I know. I mean, come on now. After 43 odd episodes, right, or 42 odd episodes so far of What's Your Perspective, it's time for me to get that interview for sure.
Maybe we'll get you in for number 50. We'll plan on that.
Oh, okay. The anniversary 50. Cool. I'll be ready. All right, Keith. So go ahead and summarize what we learned about the sales engineer today.
Well, our sales engineers, Bryce included, really take on a big role, and they wear many, many hats. I learned today that Bryce helps to take care of pre-sales questions with customers and partners. He helps to take care of, helping make sure that the quotes are accurate before they go out, that our partners are buying the right equipment to do the job. He helps when folks are actually deploying projects and getting everything in place and ready to go. He helps follow up and make sure that everything's configured on the back end and that the job is commissioned so that the end user customer is happy. And man, so many other things, technical documentation, training, educating us morons that work with you, Bryce. And, many, many other things that you take care of. We really appreciate you and your role, and also our Alman and Marciel and other folks that work with us to make sure that we all have the right knowledge we need to do the job well, and that our end users and our partners really feel well supported by our sales engineering staff. So thank you guys for the hard work that you do.
Thank you.
And Bryce, is there a way that people can reach out to you if they're an end user or an integrator to get your help with the product at times, or just to reach out to you? Do you have a Calendly or anything, or just to go?
I don't. My email address, I could spell it, but I don't know if anybody's going to record it.
So just put it down here.
Yeah, Capodieci at lensec.com. But they could always reach out to support at lensec.com and say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Bryce. That's easy. I'm not sure if my information is on the website anywhere. I'm not sure.
Call the main number, 713-395-0800, and ask for Bryce.
That's right. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook, but I don't really check Facebook that much anymore.
All right, perfect. And all right, so everyone, thank you again, Bryce, for stopping by. And Keith, again, a great show.
Yeah.
And the 50th already I'm booked, so I already have my 50th show booked. It's me, and Keith's going to interview me and just grill me for an entire time. And all right, so again, this again was LENSEC Live. What's Your Perspective? Go to lensec.com live to catch up to all the live episodes. We're available also on Spotify and different places, and people need to check out Anchor FM if you guys are podcast aficionados and you want to just listen to it instead of just watch it. And we're always on Facebook and LinkedIn Live and also YouTube. So I appreciate you guys all stopping by, and tune in next week for another great episode. So take care.
Thank you.